One of the trickiest parts of evaluating a source can be determining the authority of the author. What makes someone an authority? Authority is constructed and contextual. We, collectively, decide who gets to be an authority on a subject, and which subjects they're viewed as an authority on. Let's look at an example to see how this works. If you are writing a paper about how a novel describes the plight of poverty, who is an authority on that topic? Someone who has lived in poverty could be an authority because of their personal experience. They would know more about that experience than someone who has never known hardship. On the other hand, a sociologist who has the education and professional expertise to be able to analyze the larger trends, causes, and repercussions of poverty would also be an authority on that topic. You may consider including both an interview, blog, or autobiography of someone who has personally experienced poverty, paired with an academic article or book written by a sociologist on the topic. Another clear signal of authority is authorship. Who is the authority on an author's intentions? The author themselves. Diaries, interviews, behind the scenes and making of documentaries can be great sources when you're discussing what an author meant or intended in their work. However, these types of author-written sources aren't always available. The next level of authority would be a subject specialist, someone who's studied the life and work of that author. Because authority is constructed and contextual, our own bias can limit the voices we are willing to listen to. Be careful when you're selecting sources that you are aware of your own bias and the bias present in academia and society at large. For example, a PhD-level history professor is an authority on his specialty, but a historical blogger might have just as much knowledge of the same topic. Credentials are one way to determine authority, but higher education can present class, gender, political, and racial bias that might prevent someone with just as much passion and knowledge from attaining credentials. Looking beyond traditional academic sources can be a great way to reduce the bias in your own research. Just be sure to apply the CRAP test and choose sources that include citations and bibliographies whenever possible.